Good afternoon, everyone. Thomas just made it right behind. Hi, Thomas. Yes. All right, we're going to get started on our little program. Thank you for coming to the 50th anniversary of the Sigma 7 sit-in. This is the commemoration of the first rescue, which is a huge deal. So for those of you that don't know, I'm Elise Ketch, and I put this on. It's also my birthday, so thank you for coming to my birthday party. Thank you, really, thank you so much. It's such an honor. And we need to talk, I think most of the people here actually know the story of the Sigma 7 pretty well, but for anyone else who's watching and just doesn't know, the Sigma 7 are the 7 women who got arrested at the first sit-in against abortion, and that sit-in happened right at the clinic, right through the door. You can see it. The clinic no longer exists because I was told 25 years to the day it closed. So that's really cool. So that would have been August 2nd, 2000, right? So yeah, really exciting stuff. Yeah. Call that coincidence if you want, call that divine timing, whatever you want. But this sit-in stands out from later rescues that happened, like Operation Rescue, in part because there was such an ideological range. I mean, a lot of the organizers were liberal, some of them were atheists or agnostic. There was all kinds of people, and they focused on a secular stance against abortion and humanizing them and human rights. And then they were also largely inspired by their time doing Vietnam War protests. So that flavor kind of fed into that sit-in, which makes it unique and meant a lot to me as a leftist. Sorry, everyone, but I lean pretty liberal, but I am still pro-life. And it was hard for me to find a place in the movement that feels, good and feels welcoming. And realizing, wait, there were people like me before, like my foremothers and forefathers, and they did these really cool direct actions, like what I do in other protest movements. That's really exciting. And then I started doing some direct actions against abortion too. I also go into the clinics, and I haven't done a sit-in yet, but I have handed out roses. So I think it's so important to put your body between the abortionists and the people being oppressed, the women and the children. And so I want to honor that, and I want to honor the first time it was ever done. And so we're going to hear from the people who were there. We're going to start with Burke Balch, and Burke was the intern of Chris Mooney and Tom Mooney, who were the main organizers.
Chris right there on that picture.
Yep, right there was Chris, and that's Lisa. Burke also researched how to do sit-ins and gave the tactical manual to the Moonies. And then Chris Mooney trained all these women on how to do nonviolent sit-ins based on that. It's really super cool. And that's the other important thing about this sit-in, was it was women-led. So this is women's history. I mean, Chris was the organizer. They did the training on their own. They went in on their own. They sat in. It was all women who sat in. The men were outside supporting, cheering on, you know. And so that's just really, really cool to see female power at work, especially in the pro-life movement. So, okay, give it up for Burke. Woo!
Apart from Elise, I'm the only person speaking who was not arrested at Sigma. My arrest came at later sit-ins. So why am I here? To give basically, very briefly, some of the background to how the sit-in came about, and even more briefly, to mention a few of the things that followed from it. So to understand how the sit-in, that first sit-in came about, the key elements were a group that was called the National Youth Pro-Life Coalition. Tom and Chris Mooney. Tom was the national director. Some publications say he was the president. That's not the case. Susan Baxter History was the president. Susan Baxter Hilgers was the president. But he was the national director, and Chris Mooney was involved with that. And a man by the name of Chuck Fager. So, first of all, the National Youth Pro-Life Coalition was founded in Chicago in 1972 to unify a number of anti-Vietnam War and pro-life student groups in various states. And it was founded under the tenet that, quote, "there is no human life not worth living," a quote from a survivor of the Auschwitz camps. And it was founded with what was called a consistency philosophy to oppose abortion, euthanasia, capital punishment, and to work for positive solutions to human problems for people in poverty, those with disabilities, for prisoner rehabilitation, and for peace. Very much on the left wing of the nascent pro-life movement. Now, as I say, it hired Tom Mooney as the national director, and it was the first pro-life organization to open an office in Washington, D.C., 235 Massachusetts Avenue Northeast, a few blocks from the Capitol. So enter Chuck Fager. Now, I'll connect them up in a moment. In 1965 to 1966, he worked with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference during the civil rights activity of that era. Notably, he, being arrested with, shared a jail cell at one point with Martin Luther King and Ralph Abernathy, and he participated in the Selma campaign. And ultimately, he wrote the definitive account of the Selma campaign. For those who may not be fully familiar with it, the famous case of crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge, being attacked viciously by troopers on horseback who pounded them all on national television, that had a major impact on stimulating the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So he wrote the book Selma 1965, basic account of that. 3 weeks before Roe versus Wade was handed down, Chuck Fager published an article in a Boston alternative left-wing journal called The Real Paper with the title "Two Sides on Abortion," in which he made connections with dehumanizing non-white people, women, poor people, Vietnamese, and the unborn. And he basically argued that in all of those cases, people were being treated as vulnerable, and vulnerable people were being treated as less than fully human. Well, someone, I suspect it would have been one of the Moonies, saw this and invited him to speak. First at the Northeastern Regional Conference, it was held in Boston, Northeastern Regional Conference of the National Youth Pro-Life Coalition, held in Boston in summer 1974, and then at the Thanksgiving for Life National Convention of NYPLC, was held in the Biltmore Hotel in New York City, which notably was addressed by Jesse Jackson, Dick Gregory, and Dolores Huerta of the United Farm Workers, all of whom at that time were very strongly opposed to abortion. Jesse Jackson talked about how it was basically the same thing as dehumanizing those who were subjected to slavery. At both of those conferences, Chuck Fager made the case that people in the pro-life movement ought to act similarly to the way that those active in the civil rights movement had successfully, ultimately, made major strides in changing laws, changing practices, and converting hearts and minds. Now, obviously, I'm supposed to speak for only about 5 minutes, and I can't summarize everything that he said, but I'm going to mention 3 key concepts that I think were critical to the sit-in movement and beyond. First, he emphasized the linkage between directly intervening to protect rights, in the case of the civil rights movement, to desegregate lunch counters, to desegregate with the freedom rides, to desegregate places of public accommodation like bus stations, and also voter registration, the right to vote, which was what was going on in Selma. He was linking those direct efforts to specifically protect rights in a particular context with, at the same time and in the same way, gaining attention and identification with the victims of discrimination by the larger public through nonviolence associated with acceptance of suffering when one encountered the often brutal efforts to prevent one from asserting rights, trying to protect the vulnerable. Second, he emphasized the point made in Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous letter from Birmingham jail, that the context of that was there were a bunch of white ministers who said basically that the demonstrations, that the activities by the civil rights activists were bringing violence upon themselves, and they were actually provoking violence, even though it was other people who were violent. And what King said is, what was actually happening there was it was bringing the existing violence out in the open so it could be seen. The violence was hidden. And Baker said that the same thing is true in abortion. Unborn children can't be seen, except through ultrasound and so forth. And the point that he urged was that through intervening to directly between the abortionist's knife and the child, that you make visible the violence, particularly if violence is perpetrated upon you when you do that. And the third key point he made, which he said was absolutely critical, is that while condemning and actively seeking to stop the act, one must be seeking the conversion of the actors, that one must not be endeavoring to condemn the individuals, whether they were segregationists, whether they're abortionists, and that we also have to always recognize the imperfection in ourselves. We're not perfect. We have faults. We have failings. We've done things that are wrong. So the effort is not to make every effort always to be, regardless of how you're spit upon, how you're beaten, how you're treated, how you're shouted at, not to respond in kind. So in any event, the Moonies, I had been at both of those workshops, and in the summer of 1975, I was an intern for the National Youth Pro-Life Coalition, sleeping on a waterbed in the NYPLC headquarters. Tom Mooney had a waterbed store as a side thing to bring in some money. So the Moonies, particularly Chris, asked that I do some research into the theory and specific practice of nonviolent direct action. So I spent a lot of time in the Library of Congress, and I did, in the course of that, as has been published in some cases, read the Oppenheimer and Lakey book, A Manual for Direct Action. But the book that was really most helpful, I thought, and most thorough, was a book by Gene Sharp that was called The Politics of Nonviolent Action. It was a 3-volume work. And I can't, of course, fully summarize that here, But I will give one, well, I'm going to have one quote. And that quote is, "By combining nonviolent discipline with solidarity and persistence in struggle, the nonviolent actionists cause the violence of the opponent's repression to be exposed in the worst possible light. This, in turn, may lead to shifts in opinion and then to shifts in power relationships favorable to the nonviolent group. These shifts result from withdrawal of support for the opponent and the grant of support for the nonviolent actions." So, to be precise, there were a lot of very specific suggestions, so we say tactical suggestions or practical suggestions that were provided. That resulted, I was not the one who drew this up, but some of the information I provided helped Chris Mooney to draw up a 3-page logistical plan. Very noteworthy among this were elements that talked about no matter how abusive they may be, only the appointed spokesperson is to engage anyone on the staff in conversation. Only the person designated to interact with their clients shall engage in conversation with them. And we want to time it so that the press gets there before the police and the police get there before the press leaves. With this in mind, the leaders will escalate the action in accordance with the objectives. So I just give that as a sample of how carefully planned out it was, particularly with alternative courses of action depending upon what happened. So at the sit-in itself, which you're going to hear from those who were directly sitting in just a moment, my only role was to stand outside with a big sign that showed an unborn child and said love them and had National Youth Pro-Life Coalition on it. But I'm going to mention very briefly sort of a quick follow-up point, and that is that on April 9th to 11th in 1976, I was a student at Williams College, and there was something called the Northeastern Undergraduate Conference on Bioethics at the University of Massachusetts Amherst that I went to. And while I went there, I happened to meet John Kavanaugh O'Keefe. And after we talked a little bit about twinning and how was that relevant to when human life begins, he said to me, essentially, I'm not able to say it with the eloquence that is inevitably what comes out of John's mouth, but he basically was saying, well, now, if we really believe that unborn children are human beings, why aren't we directly acting in order to intervene nonviolently? And my response was, well, as a matter of fact, we were doing that. And there was a sit-in last summer. And after we talked a little bit more, it turned out that one of the people involved, who, although not arrested, is Dave Gaetano, and John knew Dave Gaetano very well. They were good friends. So in any event, I will say that minor as my involvement has been, that it at least had a certain amount of action in bringing the father of rescue into direct involvement. And of course, then there were subsequent sit-ins. The very next one, I believe, was at the bicentennial on July 4th, 1976. But now it's time to hear from the women who themselves were arrested in Sigma.
Of course.
Before we continue on, just a few notes. This is an open bar, so you can order food, you can order drink, you can order whatever you want, up to a point. But please help us get up to that point, because otherwise the money is wasted. So enjoy what's accessible to us. The programs are also on the table up front here, if you want something to bring home. And then me and John wrote a book, and it is free, and you can take a copy until there's no copies left. So up to you. Just wanted to put those out there. Next up, we're hopefully going to have Ann Schutt speak, but I'm gonna see. Do you want to speak? Sure. All right. You want to come on up? Some fun facts about Anne. Anne was police liaison at the first rescue at the sit-in. So that's really cool. You can see it in the police documents that are in the different binders across the tables. It says, who did they speak to? Anne. Anne said this. Anne said that. So Anne had a very important role, and I would love to hear from her. So come on up.
Hi there. I really don't have much to say, but I just wanted to say hi to everybody and how much fun it was. Oh, thank you. I wanted to say hi and how much fun it was to do this. I wasn't scared. Somebody said they were scared of something, maybe Jeanette. I had a wonderful time. And I will mention, I did have my baby under a year old with me. We were told to bring our babies if we could. So I did, and she did. She didn't remember that for some reason. Anyway, that's all I have to say, unless anybody has any questions. Okay. Say what again?
They're thinking of questions. They've got to give them a second to think of a question.
Does it look the same across the street?
I don't remember anything. That's my problem.
Do you want to say anything about the training sessions and the preparations?
I don't remember any of that. No.
Burke, I do.
Very poor speakers, I don't
Burke, I do.
remember anything. I just remember it was too early in the morning that we had to get up. It was like 4 in the morning or worse. So that I didn't care for, but other than that, it was great. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know how many sit-ins did you go to after this one?
I went to, 5 after, there were 6 altogether that I went to. So, loved them all. Yeah.
Did it hurt when you were arrested?
No, I think we probably were told to go limp or something, so I did, I was carried out. Pardon? Oh, maybe somebody was, say what again? Anyway, so I guess that's all I have to say, just wanted to say hello and, it's fun being back, so fun to remember those days. Okay, bye. Thank you. Knees are not as good as they used to be.
So that was wonderful, and if any other speakers want to do a tiny Q&A, I'm open to that. That was a fun little improv. So next up we have Jeannette Reinecker, which she was another one of the women holding her baby at the sit-ins, and she also later went on to help with the Pregnancy Resource Center that Chris Mooney and Jolie Fleming opened up. So give her a round of applause.
First of all, I'd like to thank Elise for sharing her birthday with us. It strikes me that that's at the heart of the pro-life movement. It's not about you, it's about others. And so, very fitting in some ways. Thank you. And I'd like to give the tribute to Chris Mooney and Jolie Fleming and Burke, because they were the initiators. And it wouldn't have happened without them. Initiation is so important. Yes, the support is. And that was an example of the front lines of the culture wars. And when I was first approached about it, I was so unlike Anne. She's much more courageous than I am. I'm at heart a coward. In fact, I pray for the virtue of courage because I need all the help I can get. And when I was first approached about it, and I thought that we were doing the first pregnancy aid center in the area.
I think you did, yeah.
Yes, and I thought that was before this.
Yes.
Yes,
my memory.
that's my memory too. And that was all about that. And we founded Pregnancy Aid Center. Jolie, Chris, I was one of the founding members, but again, they were the shakers and the movers of it. And that came natural. And when they approached me about a sit-in, and I understood, I came out of the Vietnam movement. I was a young mother right out of college, and we were all Vietnam and all that kind of stuff. And when they first approached me, I said, I think it's a great idea, but no. I'm a middle-class housewife with 2 little kids. I support it, but I am not going to sit in. And they said, well, will you come to the meeting? And I said, of course, I'll come to the meeting as a supporter. And we were at the meeting, and I never would have guessed that I would sit in and be arrested. And they had a questionnaire, and maybe Burke, you probably devised that. And there were different questions we were to answer. And one of those questions said, how far would you go to save a life? I couldn't say, I'd go this far, but I wouldn't go any further. And so I was like, I have to. I don't want to, but I have to. So, and sometimes I ask my clients, I'm a clinical social worker now, and I owe my profession basically to the pro-life movement. Because when Roe v. Wade happened, my whole world shifted. I thought the world was safe before Roe v. Wade. I thought the world was basically good. And it is. You all are proof of that. But there was a seismic shift, and so it was the worst thing to me that happened in my life, Roe v. Wade. I just had a baby. I saw these unborn babies, and I could see my baby in the pictures. John Wilkie's book, Handbook on Abortion, it just shook me. So, and then I had to do these things that I didn't really want to do because I'm a coward and I'm lazy. But anyway, so it was the worst thing that happened, but of course the best thing that happened when we lived the mystery. We lived the mystery of the good. God, the good. But anyway, I digress. I'm sorry, get the hook. Get the hook. So I was in, and it was very well planned. And we showed up right out there, and I can remember I was almost hyperventilating. My heart was beating hard in my chest. I had my baby, and of all things, I had to be stylish. And I was wearing platform shoes. And I felt like I was on stilts and I was going to fall off my shoes. I was that scared. So I wasn't having fun, Ann, but probably people like you stabilized me. So anyway, we went in, and then I was at peace. I was at such peace. And I think that's when we do the right thing. Yep. We get peace. It's hated to do it. And so today, I pass out Defend Life, and I pass out things to people, and I say, pray when you read these articles. Because people on the front lines of the culture wars, your prayer, you can be part of that front line if you're praying for them. And the front lines, I pray for them every day because, and now, Elise, you're a part of the front line.
Thank you.
Because you're telling the story. And I know everybody here still is front line, but I moved to Calvert County. Ann did 6. I only did, I think, 2 or 3. I can't remember. It might have been 3. And we didn't go to court for the first one. They dropped the charges because that was a smart thing to do. But we did go to court. And I want to give a shout out to Jerry Mitchell. God rest his soul. God rest Jerry.
He's on vacation. He's on
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you.
See you later, Christine.
Wow. Oh, that's so good. But he defended us so eloquently and beautifully. And so there's a place for everybody in this movement. Now, I don't know if I've answered the questions about going in. Yes, it was scary being in there. The article, I found an article that I have to give it to you, that talks that the police were so good to us. They didn't want to do what they were doing. And they were so gentle. not to be said later. So those who followed us, and Joan Bells, and who else, the other people who've been arrested when they were far more brutal, they did the hardest thing. But I am grateful to Jolie, Burke, Chris Mooney, Tom Mooney, they were friends, we lived in Tacoma Park together, for what they did in starting the first pregnancy aid center. And I remember they say, nobody's talking about abortion. See, and they tried to silence debate from the very beginning. Nobody's talking about it. And we must, because we must be true university people. When I go to university is unity in diversity. And we have to be able to have different positions on these things, but to talk about why we feel this way, why you feel that way, and have discourse. And that's at the heart of what I do in family systems counseling too. So we have still a lot of work to do, and I know that's why you're here. And thank you very much for this honor of honoring the 50th anniversary of what I told my children was the hardest thing I've ever done. Any questions?
Yeah.
We can take them all later if you don't have any questions now.
All right, yeah. Come up to her later if you have questions. Thank you so much, Jeanette. All right, next up we have Elise Donohoo. I don't know your last name now. Tennant, Lisa Tennant, who was Lisa Donohoo at the time. And she was the youngest person to be arrested that day, and so she didn't get in the newspapers. That's why in all the books you'll see that have published about this encounter, they call them the Sigma 6, and everyone adamantly told me when I mentioned that, they said, no, it's a Sigma 7, it's 7. So here's to the 7th. Lisa, will you come on up?
Hi, thank you for all coming out so much. I would have never guessed in the 50th anniversary would bring this, and it's wonderful to see you all here. I learned a lot today. I had no idea part of all that was going on. My sister Amy and I got involved a little bit late. Georgie Richard, who we picketed with every Saturday in front of his clinic, he was in on it, but they weren't sure that Don and the girls were going to be that type of person. So they were going to tell us what was going to happen. But George thought they should tell us and just find out where we stood. Well, we were all in. It's like, yeah, we're not only supporting this, we want to be part of it. So, like Jeanette, I get nervous, but like Anne, it was wonderful. So I just want to share with you a few of the memories that I have. We went into the clinic and we sat in the waiting room area. They very quickly ushered the clients out of there. So we were left sitting there alone. We heard that Channel 7 had shown up with a television crew. But they were on the outside of the clinic in the hallway, and we were around the corner on the inside. So we all moved over to where the door was, and very quickly somebody shut the door. I don't know who shut it. I think it was not the police, but the clinic personnel. The police were wonderful, as Jeanette said. They were with us, I think, 100%. And in fact, we stayed in the clinic that long, too, said something about them. And they were very gentle and nice. So now we're sitting there, but the door is closed. And we're sitting there, and then Jeanette and Anne, who both had their babies with them, said to us, "You'll all be okay. We too have to leave. Our babies are getting fussy." And I had seen their babies. They were fine. Karen and Betsy were good as angels. It's like, no, don't leave us. Like, no, it will be okay. It's one of those instances in life where you just have to trust your leaders. even though it made no sense to us. So they got up and they said to the policeman, "We think we better leave, our babies are getting fussy." And the policeman said, "Fine, but you have to understand, you may not come back in." They said, "We know, we understand." So we opened the door, and as they just walked in front of the door, they very quickly sat down. That door could not be closed again. And the cameraman got rolling. During this time, a clinic personnel person, I guess, was coming into work late, and she had heard what was going on. So she shows up and pretends that she is a patient. And she says, I don't want to use her exact words because they're not in my vocabulary, but she referred to the baby as a baby. She said, "I don't want that blank baby." She kept saying this over and over. I did hear, I don't know from what sources, that she was reprimanded later by the clinic for her choice of words. I'm not sure what she was supposed to say. I don't want that blob, I don't want that, whatever, I don't know. But anyways, they had great footage, and they showed it that night on the, whatever time it was, 6 o'clock news. They showed it again at 10 o'clock news. And the next evening, they showed it again, full time. So they loved it. It was 4 minutes worth, which is pretty long for a news item. And my recollection is back then, we were just trying to get the word abortion out there in the media. Nobody wanted to talk about the issue. It's not like now where we have all these advertisements from the political campaigns and all they want to do is talk about abortion. There was nothing. So by having a sit-in, we finally made some news. And boy, did we get the news. It was great. And that was really the seed of the future sit-ins. I don't know how much we thought about saving a life at that point. That came later. I mean, it was wonderful. We were trying to get the news. We were definitely trying to stop abortions on that day. Are we really going to save a life? You know. It was the next year, I thought it was July 3rd instead of the 4th, 76. It was a Nazi parade the same day. We figured the police were going to be pretty busy down in DC handling them, so we thought it was a good day. It was a good patriotic thing to do. And people came from as far away as Colorado, I believe, for it. I don't have a lot of memories on that. I remember more the next day we all went down to the fireworks together. That was fun. And then our next sit-in was, I think maybe January, in Virginia. And when my family was leaving our apartment, we found out we had a flat tire. Then we found out we had 2 flat tires. So we had putting a spare on. So we ended up taking a cab. We got there too late. I still wanted to get in. All the pro-lifers were back in the rooms, and I made it in, and they thought that I was a patient. So they put me in with the counseling session. And I thought, wow, what an opportunity. So the next time we had a sit-in, we sent 2 women in. They probably made appointments. They went in, and as they sat there with the counseling session, one of them said, and the counselor said, 3 days after the baby was born. So one of the women there for an abortion got up and walked out. And our 2 women followed her. I can't remember, one of them was Florence Smith, I can't remember the other one. And they said, "You left, why?" And she said, "That woman's lying, I'm no fool. Baby's heart doesn't start beating 3 days after it's born." Well, that baby, as you can guess, was saved, and the mother actually worked at National Right to Life for years and became a I eventually, after 11 arrests and I got 3 jail sentences because I always refused probation. I finally actually had to make some money in life and got a job in which I couldn't get arrested. And then I got proposed to by my wonderful husband over there. And so that was the end of my sit-in career. And just about this time, I'm starting to hear on the news about Operation Rescue. And that's what the event across the street gave birth to. Yes. it's very wonderful, heartwarming. And of course, we're still going. I would like to say with the FACE Act, it took the federal government to shut us down. So it's a big lot. So we're strong. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you again for coming out. I'd like to say especially thank you to Elise for organizing this. She's done a wonderful job. Thank you for bringing us all together.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so we have one speaker left, and it's a big one. So we're going to talk to Jeanne Catano, who was Jeanne Miller at the time, and Jeanne was one of the titans of the movement before Operation Rescue. Like, you see her name everywhere in the newspapers. I did my research, I saw, and it's incredible. So she's one of my heroes. You're all one of my heroes, but she's definitely a big one. And she also was a minor on the day of the first sit-in. So there is in the police report this woman who they said did not give her name, refused to give her name, and then got up right at the last call, right before they started arresting people, and left. And I'm pretty sure that was Jeanne. So, and that would make sense. But she got arrested lots of times after that, became one of the first people to go to jail for doing sit-ins against abortion, and just was a leader in the movement. So I'd love to have her speak. You want to come on up?
Hi, this is what I'm really afraid of. I really am. But I started in pro-life when I was an early teenager. I was in New York. I was living with my grandparents. I was 12 years old, and there was a flyer that went out in the bulletin, or just somehow I picked it up, and it said, "Is this life worth 8 cents?" So that's what postage stamps were then. I think they're 78 cents now. Is this life worth 8 cents to write to the to Albany to do something about the pro-abortion proposal? And then I wound up back here in Maryland soon after that with my dad, who was a New Yorker and who was very involved in pro-life. So I was involved with pro-life from the very beginning. And I do remember a bit about the planning for this sit-in. And at the time, George Urishon, you've heard a lot, and my dad, we did a lot of publicity for all of the picketing that we had going here, and as Lisa said, no one published it. We had quite a lot of publicity locally for the very first demonstration here. We were several hundred people. You see that picture. That was a real big thing. And Lisa reminded me of something. At the bottom of the article in the Catholic paper, it said, "And the picketing will continue every Saturday," which was news to all of us because no one had actually said that. And that took away our entire, Lisa was a teenager also as me, it took away our entire social life for the entirety of our high school career, which we spent every Saturday out front. So that was the end of that. And we just felt duty-bound to go back, and we did, and Anne came some of the time. The Siskis, Barbara Siska, who died only last year, was there with her younger kids. Lisa's brother, sister, mother, Catherine O'Connor, lots of, we'd be out there, but not huge groups. Never could get anything really in the paper about any of this. And of course, when they were writing up these various, Anne wrote a lot of press releases, and Anne was frequently the one cited because, of course, she wanted to quote a woman. And another thing that was happening then, of course, was the whole women's movement. So, do we call them spokesmen? There's one. Do we say spokeswoman? Do we say spokesperson? And well, one time I was like, I don't care what you call it. I want to be the spokesman. Can't we have a quote from me? And George Urishon said, and I said, what will I be? Will I be a spokesperson or spokeswoman, and George said, "You are a spokes-tot." And so I became a spokes-tot. Eventually, I guess, did get voted. So I do remember some of the planning. Some things I remember about Chris. Somebody said that she started the first, Jeannette, that Chris started the first pregnancy aid center, which will be confusing if you remember birthright. And there were birthright things around. There were birthrights in other places, but they were called birthright, and they were not the same. It wasn't the same focus, it wasn't the same name. And she really did start the very first pregnancy aid center, and it was a big difference in the movement, and a lot of other differences came through Chris, and then through that first sit-in. As Lisa mentioned, our understanding of what we were doing did evolve, and I was 15 for the first one, so I don't remember what I understood, but I do know that I had been down there for some of the anti-Vietnam protests, not as a protester at all. Elise mentioned the difference of opinion. Well, Anne was a Republican precinct chairman. My father was a Republican precinct chairman. They were thrilled when Jesse Jackson had his 5 minutes of being pro-life. Unfortunately, he went over to the dark side after that, but they were very welcoming of that. But when I was down during those sit-ins and events for the Vietnam War, we'd actually just been going to the museums, and other times my father took me down to observe the protests, because why not? That's what you do when you live in DC, you go and observe other protests. So I was kind of familiar with that idea, but I didn't really like the thought of sit-ins. I didn't think that they were the people that I had seen were dirty. They left trash every place inside the museums. I didn't want to do that. So I definitely understood Jeanette's thinking about that, but it was pro-life, so in we went. I did leave at the very last minute, and my picture, I'm in there with Jeanette and the picture where they're in the doorway there, when they got it open, I do remember that. That was a riot. They opened the door, yes, they opened the door, and they just fell down, like chop. Like they had been practicing it for ages instead of coming up with it just that fast on their own. And then I moved in the door jam there. But I turned there was a custody dispute going on with my parents, so I didn't want my name in the paper. I didn't want to get arrested. I didn't want my name in with an arrest. So I left, and it was 2 years later that I was actually at a sit-in and arrested. Burke, one thing I remember, you were also doing publicity. And you had, when I was talking to my husband Dave about it, who was not, by the way, at this event. He was at the next ones, so just to set the record on that one. When I told Dave what I remembered about you and my dad, these two New Yorkers, kind of butting heads, which was awesome. I backed away and just watched. It was kind of fun. So I told Dave, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's totally Burke." And then I told him my wife, "Oh yeah, that's totally Dad." So it was coincidental. You had gone down to the National Press Building, which I think was like 14th A Street, something like that, and you had gotten the information on every single press agency in there. The Tokyo Fishery Journal. Every single one. That one is probably not a made-up one, by the way. And you had the contact information, and once we went in, the people were supposed to start the calls, because this was the news of the hour. This was the most important story ever. And that was one of the, so you were every single one. My father's there. No, for Tokyo Fishery Journal. And like, Jim, it's all pro-life, it's all related. I mean, it's a journal that you're coming. And then, like I said, I just backed off and said, give me the quarters afterwards and my list, and I'll always have on it. And so afterwards, so you did make calls, my father made calls, when I came out, I made calls. So I did get to be a spokestop. What else do I remember? I remember that it was really hot outside on the picket line, but it was nicer inside. So when Ann said it was fun, that part is true. But it was very nervous as to what was going to happen. I didn't know if they'd wind up rounding us all up, but as they said, they did not want to. Later police were not always as nice about that. What else do I remember about that one? So the feeling did evolve, and I know by the time of the second sit-in that I was involved in, by then we'd already had the Virginia sit-in, and one thing that was amazing about that is we won those cases. We won those cases in Virginia. They were able to present the information to the judge that this was not merely or intentionally or mostly a demonstration, but it was a direct action to save a life, just like if you were walking down the street and there's posted no trespassing and there's a great big fence and you hear someone screaming on the other side and you waltz right on someone else's property to save a life. And that was really what I totally embraced by the time of my second sit-in. I was in a lot of sit-ins, I don't remember how many. I married young and then retired, and so that was kind of the end of mine by 1979 was my last sit-in. Can't say this part without crying. So, oh, by the way, the 3 babies, they were all women too. They were all 3 girl babies.
Yeah.
They were entirely women. But my last sit-in, I was actually pregnant. I was married. I was pregnant with my son John, formerly known as John Paul, who is now 45, and I was arrested. My husband was arrested, and then later, it took almost a full year for that to go to court. We were convicted. The young lady that you mentioned came to our trial, the woman who had changed her mind.
Tina Charmaine.
Yes.
Tina Charmaine.
Yes. And the judge, so many things. Somebody mentioned, Burke, you mentioned how the sit-ins through a number of parts of the sit-in brought out the reality, made visible the reality. And one of the reality was just how much people, even when they knew the truth, didn't care. So at this trial, we're trying to get this wonderful lawyers on our thing. We had 12 of us at one point and 15 lawyers, and we're trying to get the information about the babies in the way it was done so successfully in Virginia. And so we had the woman come, and we get her sworn in, and there she is. Prosecution objects, and our lawyers start to make the case for it. And the judge says, don't bother. I know exactly what you're going to say. This woman was there that day, right? And these people here, according to us defendants, convinced her not to go, and now she has this baby, right? And they saved that baby. Okay, I'm not letting any of that in. I don't care. Okay, and of course she actually hadn't been saved at that particular study, but the same idea. So that was really revealing. So we were convicted, and we did wind up going to jail. And that was, I think, the second time I went to jail, and that was just before the 1980 election. And I really didn't have any more involvement in sit-ins except to watch the start of rescues, and that was really, to me, that was our biggest lost opportunity as a movement, was the church and pro-life in that period of time between 1975 and the FACE Act, that we, with some more numbers, maybe it would have been enough to have changed things 50 years ago. So, anyway, thank you so much.
Okay, I would like for,
I would like for everyone who was present the day of the Sigma 7 sit-in to come up here to the stage, just like up in front, and we can take a group picture if that's okay. For everyone else, we need to start cutting my birthday cake and eating it because we only have like 25 minutes left. I don't know if we have a way to cut it other than the rose, so we're gonna have to figure it out. And the nail filer.
I'm sorry, I should not have known this.
She didn't say this, but maybe it was the last time she went to, it must have been the last time she, her last page, when she went to, when she was found guilty.
This was the one that
No.
Jeannie and her husband had to go to jail for that, but she refused to not take her baby. She was a nurse.
That's all right.
And it made the Washington Post. I just had a huge, beautiful picture.
Chicago Tribune, Alaska paper, San Francisco paper, it was.
I think she had Burke's list of publications.
Tokyo Fishery Journal. Not Tokyo.
Is this everyone?
It was a beautiful picture and it was a real winner. How can you not love a baby?
It was also on the television.
All right. If y'all could stand in front of the stage, that would be great.
Try to squeeze in as close as possible. Try to squeeze in as much as possible.
Oh, the good, the bad, the ugly. Which one's first?
The ugly one.
One, two, three. Now I'll jump in the air. I'm gonna do one more, okay? Perfect. All right. Good.
Okay, someone else will have to start cutting that cake and handing it out. I have a few things to say, and then we've got some singers who will lead us out of this. So, for people who might not be convinced on the efficacy of rescue, it's not really about saving babies. It's about solidarity with the babies, which witnessing them and showing their humanity is the most important part of a rescue. And when we ask ourselves, are these really full people like us? And the answer has to be yes, then I would do things that I would do for other people to help them, to save them, to witness them. So that's the importance of doing a rescue, of doing a sit-in, and I encourage people to do it again in the future, face act or not, but you get to decide your own risk level. So I also want to name the people who were there who are not present today. So that includes Amy Donohoo, Eileen Renzi-Forstel, yep, Mary Hayes, and Jolie Fleming. Yeah, and then I want to quickly talk about Chris and Tom. Chris was, Jeannette told me, a dynamo. She went on to support the Ellen McCormick campaign and run as a delegate for that. She also went to the Providence Hospital and worked at the Life Center there. So she continued to do pro-life things throughout her life. And then I checked her Facebook before she died. She's still posting about being a liberal and being mad at Democrats. So she stayed liberal her whole life, which I think is really cool. Her husband Tom did not. He started running as a Republican in her state legislature. Yeah, Chris. And those are just neutral facts. It's cool that they both stay pretty pro-life. Tom ended up starting an organization for the extension of life and seeing that as part of the pro-life movement as well, like helping elders. So I think that's really cool. And so can we do a quick moment of silence for those who have passed? Thank you. And I also want to do a moment of silence for the children who have passed since Roe versus Wade and before and after. So let's say a little moment of silence for them. Thank you. So birthday Katie's being here. Who is actually up next is the one handing it out. So that's the one.
Let's go.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Elise. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Okay, so Kristin and Josh want to sing a little thing for us.
Kristin's gonna go first.
If you're about to leave, I want you to take the binders with you that are relevant to you. So you need to take Eileen's, Lisa needs to take Amy's. I'll keep Gerard's because I'll go see him, and I'll keep the Moonies. And I want...
We have a very special song.
I want someone to take, I want you to take Jolie Fleming's as well. So that would be great. And also take a rose with you. So there's lots of roses there for you, and as a sign of honor. And take them to a clinic. Go give them to someone who needs them. And you're free to stay after the bar opens up to the public. There will be an artist coming in at 5 to do their own performance. So up to you. And we might want to try to do a picture outside too. I don't know. I don't know anything about that. You want to do a picture outside? Cool. So I'll gather up the Sigmas. We'll do our picture outside and just outside the house here. So that
Crossing the street?
you want to cross the street? Okay. Well, can we do that after they sing or okay? So they're gonna sing. We're going to cross, the people from the Sigma 7, if they feel safe, are going to cross the street together and take a picture in front of the clinic. And then that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for coming out. I really appreciate all of you for being here.
Thank you. Okay, one more round of applause for Elise. Thank you so much. For a couple years, we've been arrested together, we've done opportunity rescues together, and the song I'm about to do is called The Rescue Blues. I wrote this right before a rescue conference that we did a couple years ago, which was actually infiltrated by a federal agent. So we had lots of fun. And then after that, Josh and I are going to sing a closing song. So thank you guys so much, and make sure you get a piece of cake.
Stand over here.
The judge smacks down the gavel. I've got 40 days again, but I will keep on rescuing until my day's end. 'Cause no cop, man, or government can stop me from what I'm doing. 'Cause poison is murder, and I'm gonna act like it. Be a hero, put baby parts in jail. Say baby, and you go to jail. We don't want your lousy bail. Duo time. You guys probably know this
This
one.
song we have to everyone sing along. This is audience participation. Yeah.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. Well, no, because I just. Right, testing.
Testing. Okay.
All right.
Sigma 7. Yeah.
All right, I think you all know this one. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I wanted to believe. We shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll sing along. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. In my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe
stuff.
So for the Sigma 7 people, so the 5 that were already up here, if you would like, we are going to cross the street and take.
We are going to cross the street and take a picture in front of the clinic if you would like. It's a bit of a fast street, so it might take a second to get across. I've done it myself, but like, it's up to you if you want to take that risk. If you don't want to, that's okay. So, you have to take the risk for the babies. There's no babies there anymore. That clinic is closed. So, okay, we're going to do that, and then we'll come back and everyone collect their stuff. It's closing time. Again, thank you all so much for coming. It means a ton to me. This was a great birthday. I appreciate you all.
I've had like 9 abortions, and you know, I never really thought about what it was. Are you
So what are we doing?
Okay, calling Burke, calling Lisa, calling Anne, calling Jeannette, calling Jeannie. Let's get to the other side of the road. I'll be coming with you.
Oh, yeah, I got it. How are you doing?
In 2 hours, 1 hour.
That's for their band, that's not for us. Yeah.
We
Yeah, you can just give that to them. That's for somebody else. Yeah, we're going together. I'll be going,
There's no question about it.
They're already there?
All right, I'll be meeting outside. Lisa and Burke just crossed the street by themselves, so we gotta get over there.
They're hoping to lose. They're hoping.
I took my picture over there.
So I'm not going to go around too much longer, but I'm glad I got to take it.